Welcome, world, to another episode of Nobody's a Nobody podcast with me, Mike McVeigh. This is the podcast where I interview people I find absolutely fascinating, and even though they're not necessarily rich and famous, they are fascinating. This week's guest is the barber, Lucy Piercy. Jarvix is featuring Allie Harders, Brandy, and Joe. We have a few shout-outs I'd like to mention real quick. We have the wonderful oneokc.org. That is my charity of choice, though I hope it's your charity of choice as well. They help kids and teenagers be able to gather the skills they need to be able to make it out in the world. So you can give to them at oneokc.org. I also want to shout out Make Oklahoma Weirder. Even though they are the backbone to a lot of what we do on this show, we don't really plug them enough. That is a great way to keep up with the bands in Oklahoma, no matter what style of music. Jarvix has some great things going on every week, and there are new articles being written. So please check out MakeOklahomaWeirder.com. Capital City Barbershop happens to be the place where Lucy is employed, and I think they do an amazing job, not just with my hair, of course I'm a little bit biased, but with everybody that comes in. And they do have walk-ins available regularly until you're able to find the barber of your choice to make regularly scheduled appointments. You can find them at Capital City OKC on Facebook or Instagram, or really about anywhere. And finally, I want to shout out 89th Street here in Oklahoma City. They have done some live shows even in the midst of this pandemic, and they do it responsibly. They took the time and the care to set their place up in a way that allows for musicians to come in and the fans to come and cheer for them. I was at a concert last night with Bugnog, Dire Gnome, and Clams, and oh my goodness, it rocks so much. As you might remember, Bugnog was one of our guests on the Rob Trotter Movie Man episode, and wow, those guys are intense. Clams was awesome, and Dire Gnome did a release. It was great. 89th Street in Oklahoma City did an amazing job, and I just want to shout them out. Another thing of interest that I find absolutely interesting, our episode 20, the InfoSecker, we had the musical guest Grandpa Vern, and I just found out this morning that the mother of the drummer is someone I went to school with ever since second grade, and it's so awesome. I knew that he was a talented drummer. I didn't realize we were actually featuring his song, otherwise I would have pointed it out on that episode. But check out Grandpa Vern and the addition of everybody else. It's crazy how big this world is and yet small at the same time. All right, this week we're going to talk to Lucy, my barber. She is fabulous. In fact, I feel really bad because we had a lot more episode that just had to get cut because of time. We talk about barbering and many other things. It's a great episode, so let's look forward to that. And as we always do, let's jump in.
There's probably lots you don't know.
I really don't. Well, we don't know each other greatly.
No, not really. I mean,
we've known each other for just over 2 years, and
yeah.
Then I took the relationship to another level when I asked if you'd cut my hair.
And I said yes.
You did. My wife has even been there a couple times to watch the ceremony.
Yes. And your daughter.
And my daughter. But
yes.
Then ultimately, I guess most of what I know from you is really just listening to your stories while you're cutting my hair. And that's kind of cool, but that doesn't make you any less fascinating. It just means who knows where this is going to go.
Yeah. Well, as being someone who openly admits to being a very poor storyteller, very, very terrible storyteller, I'm even shocked that you would even want to continue to listen to anything that I have to say. I appreciate your business, and I appreciate your friendship, and I'm really glad that we took a class one time and we're one of 4 people. It was a really, really great class. It was a really, really great time, you know.
For those of you that don't know me, the past few years I've almost had a shaved head for better part of 20 years, and then 3 years ago I decided to grow my hair out because I wanted to look like Thor from the movie Ragnarok. I'm still working on the muscle part, and went for almost a full year of not finding any salon, barber that could do my hair in a way that consistently, in a way that I found appropriate. And through our class, I found out you were a barber. and
Hmm.
that's what started our journey. But that is something that maybe is more common than I know. But how many females are in Barbary or barbershoppery or I don't
Oh,
know what they're called.
barbershops, barbers, tons, lots and lots and lots. I would say the reason why barbering seems to be a male dominated field, or people assume that like it's, they only do men's cuts and that's all that they know how to do, um, just stems from way back in the day. Men would get their hairs cut and women would get their hairs rolled and set, and then whatever, just it'd be picked out and brushed out and into this bouffant, and they would have a style once a week with their operator. Sometimes they would call them operators, and whatever didn't quite like fit into the style, they would just like trim around and just like cut off just like excess hair. I guess. So like women really didn't get their hair cut all that often. And over the years, you look back in like style from like the late 1800s um, to like the 1920s, like styles were relatively long hair wrapped up. And so you didn't really ever cut your hair, um unless Les Mis style, you have to sell it for money. So men really were the only ones that had true haircuts, and so that's why barbering was so like overly male dominated for such a long time. And then in the 60s, when the Beatles in um came over and became famous in America, they had their long, shaggy hair, and guys started growing out their hair, but their barbers didn't know how to cut it because they cut short hair. And so that's when, these teenage boys would cry to their moms and say, like, I want to leave my hair long, and the only person that their mom knows that can cut long hair is their hairstylist that they still go to get their weekly bouffant. And so gosh, now this podcast will turn into like the history of hair if you keep me talking. But basically, the long story short is that the influence of the Beatles culture brought long hair to men. And so that's when the crossover between barbering and hairstyling kind of like crosses. And so the women have their own little journey, but because of wash and wear hair that became famous due to the influence of the Beatles. But the only person actually to give any credit to is Vidal Sassoon, the father of modern hairdressing. Was an Israeli Englishman, and he went and revolutionized hair, and he's why we cut hair at all on men or women the way we do today. So
That is
that's
a lot of
that's a
interesting
very like long
history.
history about it. Yeah.
That I didn't know some of that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I didn't know most of that. Now my mom's going to love the
Most
fact that the
people really
Beatles are.
don't.
My mom will probably be happy to know that the Beatles brought something else to the United States. Then, so
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They did a revolution in many ways, right?
right. And not only are you a barber, you're also a licensed cosmetologist, right?
Yes.
And is there a difference between those two, or is it like what is the difference between those two?
Well, barbering and cosmetology are just like a lot of things, are state licensed um occupations. So they had two separate state board exams. They have two separate curriculums. They do overlap quite a bit. Um, but but essentially cosmetology is hair, skin, and nails. Barbering is hair and beards and skin that you touch because you're doing barbering. So they teach you about facial services and facial structure, bones. They teach you about skin and skin diseases. It's a lot of science, actually. You learn about all of the muscles in the face and neck, because it all is incorporated with like the whole scope of like why hair is the way it is and the structure of hair in the scalp, and then you go to the scalp and the skin, and everything flows out of everything, right? So like our bodies are all connected, and so your hair, skin, and nails are all connected by the same system basically. So cosmetology learns all of that, and then barbering learns that too, except that they, instead of the nails aspect or the esthetician aspect of cosmetology, they do not learn that. They learn shaving and straight razor care. So not only do they learn all of those things, both barbers and cosmetologists are extremely well versed in professional sanitation to prevent the spread of disease. And so coronavirus really should not have thrown any of us really for a loop as far as our sanitation procedures. It added some dimensions, like the masks were kind of like one thing that I wouldn't normally have done before, but both barbering and cosmetology include extensive schooling and information on all of those things, like health and wellness, as well as like the physical geometries of cutting hair.
Gotcha. That's see, now I'm finding barbering. I'm glad I didn't go into it because I really sucked at science. So, so what was the journey that brought you to barbering? Was this like a lifelong goal that you'd be eventually a barber, or just tell us the story of how you got there?
And I did never even really had to like do my own hair. So growing up, I was like one of those like squeeze it, towel dry it right out of the shower, comb it through, put it in a ponytail, throw on a pair of like jeans and a t-shirt, and you're good to go. Maybe put some chapstick on and some mascara. You know, that was like growing up, that was my thing. But I've always loved design, and I've always loved dressing situations, dressing different areas of like my room, like designing and decorating. So I went to school for interior design, and I graduated with a degree in interior design in 2009. And then in 2010, I went to hair school. So the year between I graduated from college and hair school was I hated my job. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I'm like, 22-ish, I think, out of college. And you get that like after college depression where you've worked so hard towards one goal and it's now over and you're like, okay, now what? I don't have any of my friends around me anymore. Like we all moved away or moved out of like whatever housing situation we were in for school. And it was just really, really hard. And so I just had to look at my life. And as someone who's not from the place that they live, all of my family's out of town, out of state, even different areas of the country. And working at the job that I was working at, I couldn't rub 2 days together. I couldn't get vacation. I couldn't accrue enough vacation time to be able to see my family. And so I'm single, I'm 22. I hate my job. I hate my life really. And I don't feel like I have any true connection or going anywhere. And so I just decided that like, it was one of those moments where it was completely prompted by the divine, because there's no way that at 22 I would have thought in my own head, by the own brain in my head. And like, I just decided that like I needed to look for a lifestyle rather than a career. And even if it was to be a manager at a McDonald's, if that was something that would give me all the things in a lifestyle that I was looking for, then I was going to be like the best McDonald's manager, and that wasn't in my aptitude, but I'm sure that gives a lot of people a lifestyle that they need. And so I just went on this thing to think about, what do I need in life? And I need to be flexible with like time and money. I need to be able to like make enough money to provide for myself, because it's just me. I need to flexibility of time so that I can go home and see my family whenever I want to, or within reason. And then I have a degree in what I tell people, in problem solving. That's basically what design is. It's whatever it is that whatever media that you're working with, whether that's building materials or pencil and paper or paint, or even some dirt and grass, plants. You're taking something and you're fixing a problem, and you're making it new, whether it's a blank slate or taking something from one state of being into a whole nother state of being. That was one of my criteria, my other one. And then I had another, that I needed to work one-on-one with people. I really am not like a sit in front of the computer type person. I wish that I was a little more like that, but I really, I really don't like to be kind of boxed up in a cubicle, or set at a desk and can't move for hours on end. So I wanted something that I was problem solving with my client to create something for them. And then I think that was 3. So I had 4 criterion, because 5 was too picky, I thought, and 3 was too general. Like a lot of things were 3. So my 4th thing that kind of pigeonholed me in the service industry was that I wanted a lifestyle, and a job, but I really wanted to like physically do something and work with my hands. Part of kind of not being stuck in a cubicle or a desk, So the only thing that really fit was hair, and I had thought about it a long time ago. And I remember in high school, I always thought it would be fun to know how to cut hair, but I never thought it would be something that I actually would do. And so at 22, maybe 23 at this point, I had to really I really had to get over the whole like beauty school dropout stigma that I had created in my mind, or that, the whole like legally blonde, bend and snap persona, because that's not me. Like that, but I had to figure out that like, what is the hair industry all about? And honestly, it's blown me away with its absolute inclusion and professionalism, its absolute hunger for advancement and evolving and change, and working smarter, not harder. The hair industry is it's creative and free flowing and organic, but it's also very like structured and like rule centric and kind of like black and white. So it's really like a really beautiful industry that I've really come to love and really admire, and I'm really thankful for, because it's given me my life, my clients and my industry, and being in it for 10 years, I'm able to develop a 50-50 clientele. I was able to go back to school so I could offer my men not just a haircut, but also like a shave, so that I could diversify. So I've been able to be within an industry and get educated on different facets within that industry, and really tune into the things that I really love and that I gravitate towards. And then I get to pick what I want to do. And so there's so much freedom in that. And I think in a time when like people go to work and at 22, I knew I didn't be the person that was stuck in 25 years in a career that they hated and they couldn't leave because otherwise they lost everything they worked for. And I just didn't want to be that person. And so I think there are things I can look back on that I was short-sighted in, that I wish my 22-year-old self would have maybe persevered for or tried harder for. But the things and the lessons that I've learned from, as a late bloomer, from 22 to 30, now 33, um, I don't, I fully, almost fully credit my industry with a lot of that growth, um, and who I've become, because I've been influenced by the hundreds of people that have been in my chair for 10 years, whether I have those as clients still, or I've, they've long gone on their way. I am only who I am because of them. And I can tell you, I have a handful of clients that have been with me like the whole 10 years almost. And um, they're incredibly special to me and I love them. But just to know that, like, you can spend time and effort and one-on-one talking, like communicating with people and just building relationships and thinking that you're helping them out and, like, you know, creating this beautiful canvas for them to work with and on their own at their house, their hair, and they're feeling confident and everything. But really, I think mostly my clients have fed me, and
Not just literally.
not just literally
Like,
fed me, but like spiritually and emotionally. And I talk to, in one whole day, I talk to people, and we can talk anywhere from like economics and finance to, spirituality and like what new show came up on Netflix. Those conversations with those people, it keeps me present, I guess, in my life. It keeps me present, and grounded, because I have to be right there with them. I can't be in anywhere else in my mind. And so it becomes a really sacred place when you can hold that presence with them. And there's been times, of course, where that's been hard, and I've had a really hard day, and I can't make my hard day someone else's problem, but there's been times that, I mean, shoot, I think I've cried in front of you, like, I'm pretty sure that I've at times needed back the support that I've walked my clients through over the last decade, um, through the death of husbands, through the death of moms and dads. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to get emotional in talking about this, but I don't know, this might seem all kind of jumbled and everything, but like, I'm I'm very thankful for my job. And I think that, at the end of the day, if their hair looks good, like, that's just a bonus. I want people to leave my chair feeling better than they did when they came in.
well, one, you don't need to apologize for anything. I think that's one of the many reasons why I enjoy having you as my barber. And I think it's important that with the relationships we make in life, even ones that might not be obvious at the outset, though there has been kind of a stereotype about people and the people that deal with their hair have connections and stuff. So that's definitely not unheard of. But no, it's good to see the reinforcement about um, how much they've affected you in that as well as you affect them. And I kind of like how you said that you're giving them an art project or their art that they take home. So you're kind of like a teacher in that sense of here's how it's supposed to look, and you'll mess it up, and in 2 weeks to a month,
That's
we'll
so
come
funny.
back and fix it.
Or
Well,
whatever, yeah, whatever I can do to help them feel successful, you know, with whatever it may be.
now, would you consider yourself a detailed oriented person?
Yes, absolutely. Especially, I mean, absolutely, especially with things that I care about, things that I do or that are my responsibility, but other people's stuff and other people's, like, it doesn't bother me. So I don't care if other people necessarily around me are detail oriented. Um, I mean, most really great. I work with great, amazing barbers. Every single person in my shop is amazing, and I actually think great barbers are detail oriented. So I would say everyone is detail oriented, pretty much at work. But uh, yeah, like if it's like their own space or their own room, like it can be messy or whatever. Or if they miss little things, like people focus on they just see things that I don't see. And just because they don't see that one little tiny thing doesn't mean that like the overall view is bad. It's
Right.
good.
And one of the reasons why I ask is because I mentioned this earlier, but it's very frustrating. I think I had over a year, I went about every 2 weeks, so at least 10 different hairstylists of all different sorts. And I would say, this is what I want. And they would kind of ask, is this what you're talking about? And it's like, well, no, I want this a little bit differently. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they didn't do it. I mean, I paid them, and I tried to, because you never know, because I know hair doesn't, I've learned enough about hair that it might take a little while for it to style the correct way. So what you see on the day of might not be accurate, but I'd go back for a second haircut with them. And if I was fortunate enough to get the same person, even though I made an appointment with that person, somehow I'd get swapped over to
Mm,
someone else. And
yeah.
it always felt like I was starting over every single haircut. And I have a lot of pictures from that year, and I hated all but one. And then the one I really enjoyed, I couldn't ever get that stylist back. But what you did is that you would always ask, like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Is this what you're asking? So you always repeated back what
Hmm.
you thought I was saying, which, I mean, it's almost like you took an active listening course or something. And then when you started it, you, especially the first few times, you really tried to get an idea of what I was wanting before just going all in. And that's something that I appreciated because um, who knows how many hundreds of dollars I spent just trying to tell someone something basic. And it's like, yeah, I want the sides and back shaved, but not the top. Oh, you want everything shaved? No. Or, oh, you wanted all of the sides shaved, not just like the part by the temple, or whatever. So that's why I ask.
Yeah. I think that yeah, it takes a lot of energy to be detail oriented all day long with every single haircut. To be honest, it really does take energy, um, because you have to be on the lookout for things. But I will say a lot of it comes from experience. I had really, really wonderful training and really, really great continued education this my whole career. So things that I see is because of my experience. And I think that some of that is detail oriented, but a lot of it's communication. And I learned early on in my career, which is not necessarily the same in my personal life, but in my career, I have to over communicate because I'd much rather talk about it twice than cut it twice. So, because I might have to fix something that I did if I didn't pay attention or if I didn't over communicate about a certain area.
Right.
And I really try not to assume. And that's been more in my later 20s, learning, you know, not assuming anything
Right.
ever.
And I promise we won't only talk about barbering because there are other things I would like to ask about. But what are some of the most common misconceptions of the general public have about barbering?
I guess kind of just what I mentioned earlier, that it's like men only. Um, I hate to say like common misconceptions, but like that we're, that we're stupid, that it's, yeah, that we're stupid, that it's not a real job. But that's true with cosmetology and barbering, and massage therapy and estheticians. A lot of times they think that it's just this, you know, 1+1 type equation, but really it's a very unique person sitting in front of you every single time, and you having to give them a consistent result every single time with a different canvas every single time.
Yeah.
So it's actually consistency in your haircuts is really important. But it also is, it's hard to achieve. It takes a lot of practice. And like I said, good schooling. It's always worth research and doing whenever you're going into a trade at all, any sort of learned skill. I don't care what it is, but it's worth paying for education if it's going to be better in the long run. It's worth researching where you go, because that's your foundation for all of your career.
Right. And coming from someone who has a real job, I don't know why everybody thinks it's any better. um,
I think a quote real job sounds absolutely horrible.
in many ways, it is.
Yeah.
um,
There are
what?
perks. There's pros and cons. Let's be honest. There's pros and cons.
No,
There's
I
pros
don't.
and
I don't ask this from everybody on their jobs, but are there any specifically great stories of being the barber of customers that just a funny experience or something just really strange that you're willing to share?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I because yeah, sure. I'll share one. That's kind of funny. I have one of my favorite clients. I will say he's one of my favorites. But I'd done his hair a few times. And one day I had a coworker who was kind of looking up some of our Google reviews and like reading some of the new ones that were in. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, Lucy, this one is so great. Let me read it to you." So like quiet day in the afternoon. It's probably like 1 o'clock, where it's like lunchtime. Like you come at 1 o'clock, everyone's at lunch. I don't eat lunch at 1 o'clock because I can't fit it until like 3:30 or 4. But anyways, so she's like reading this Google review. I think I am with the client, but I think they're just I can't remember who it was, but I think they were someone I was really comfortable with, because I think my coworker was like, "Is it okay if I read this out loud?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know, it's fine." So she starts reading this Google review, and the first part of it talks about like, I mean, the whole thing was hilarious, but like the first part talked about how like, upon arrival, I was immediately apologized to because my barber was running, promptly 4 minutes late. And I think I was apologized to 4 times about that. And she sits me down and she says, "How do you feel about your hair?" And he said, in the review he says, "I wasn't prepared to have an existential question about my hair. I didn't know how I felt about my hair. I didn't know that I could feel about my hair." And all, on and on. And the whole thing, I mean, it's a paragraph, a long, long, long paragraph. You can go look it up. Anyways, I just started just bawling laughing, because I never thought to myself, like, how strange of a question that is to some people. because to me, it's like, yeah, I've got lots of feelings about my hair. So I just am like, what? Like, that was where I'm like, oh, that is weird. Okay. Like, never knew that would have been, anyways. But it was actually a good review. I had seen him since the review, was posted, and he's a regular client of mine. And we laughed at the very next time I saw him, I told him the story about, oh my gosh, you'll never guess. So the other day, and he thought it was hilarious. And I was like, you really should be a writer, He's a jack of all trades.
I have to admit that I would feel the same way when you asked me how I feel about my hair. I was definitely going into the existential nature, and I'm not making a joke. That's the way I thought. Yeah. That's like, how cool is it that my barber cares about my existential feelings about my hair? Yes. I love it.
Yes, and the more that I like think about it and observe other people, and how other barbers and how they talk to their clients, I don't think it's as existential as my questions are. So yeah, I think maybe I am just weird, but it has now made me think about, my first question to the person in my chair. And it's just kind of one of those things where I now I can't not ask, how do you feel about your hair? Like, I feel now it's like, okay, well, challenge accepted. This is my thing now. I've got this shtick. It's on Google review, like, people are seeing this, and, I don't know how many likes it has, but it has quite a few likes on Google review, I think. I've actually never seen it for myself. I just heard or audibly just the once. But yeah, so it kind of, that review made me who I am, I'm just kidding. I don't think I have any more thoughts on that. Honestly, truly an end of an era. 2019 was, for me, I moved out of my last kind of roommate situation that I'll probably ever be in. And that just kind of like solidified that kind of chapter of like my life. I moved into my little garage apartment, which I've always wanted one. So it's kind of living my own little dream right now. And my commute to work's 5 minutes, so it's great.
All right, I did find it. It was from 2 years ago. It went too darn well. I was immediately greeted when I walked in. Some would call that over-attentive. The facility was clean, abnormally clean. As if there was no hair being cut. Coincidence? Paranoia? Probably. My session was scheduled for 4 p.m. It started at 4:04 p.m. Outrageous. I was apologized to for this no less than 4 times. Clearly 3 apologies would have sufficed. Apologies, sorry. My stylist Lucy began with a sincere, well-rehearsed introduction and asked how I felt about my hair. I was not prepared for existential inquiry regarding my hair. 30 points docked from Gryffindor for over-complication. The haircut itself took much less time than anticipated, was plagued by interesting conversation, and came out much better than the unrealistic idea I had in my head. Witchcraft is suspected. As the world's greatest cynicist, I think he meant cynicist, he wrote cynist, spelled like cynicist, but who knows. I am infuriated by the inability to complain about anything I have been left with. Man, I thought my review was good.
I thought it was funny.
That is funny. That's awesome.
Yeah. I have a few. I probably have other stories, but that's probably one takes the cake. So
it's brilliant, and I love the sarcasm, and it's good.
Oh yeah.
I know. Well, you mentioned your dog, and your dog Glenn is always delightful to see on Instagram, and all the trouble he gets into. And
well, he's very camera shy. So any picture that you see of him where he looks halfway like cute, it's because he didn't know I was taking a picture of him before he could look like ears down mad at me. So these are few and far between. I would post about him more often, except that he usually looks at me with disdain if I get my camera out.
That makes sense. So what you should do is you should just always be around like you're doing this, and when you're looking at
Oh,
the
I
web
am.
page.
I am. I'm like paparazzi in my own house.
Oh, that's
I'm the
great.
paparazzi.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to know, and I've seen you perform at least once at OKC Improv. And
Yeah.
how long have you been doing improv?
I've been doing improv for a few years. I took about like a kind of a year-long break at one point from taking classes. I wasn't in a group or anything performing regularly. I just took like level 1 class, level 2 class the next, 8 weeks, and then gonna have to take a break, You can't. I personally am not. I love doing improv, but I like once a week is good for me. I'm not one of the who can go out every single night of the week and like perform or do 2 classes at the same time, But yeah, so I started doing classes a few years ago, and it's just, it was the first time in my life that I had ever been in a at the time of my in that I first started level 1 class. It was the first time that I've ever had the experience of like not being self-conscious at all about anything when I was doing improv. Like level 1, my teacher was Kendon. He from OKCI.
I love Kindon.
We love Kendon. I know. He was my level 1 teacher. Could not have asked for a better level 1 teacher. Couldn't or level or any level teacher, honestly. Kendon's just like the best. And he just created such a wonderful environment that I actually missed the first practice because I couldn't attend it, and I joined kind of late. So my first practice was the second week. And so I felt like I was jumping in to this group that like somehow knew something because they had met once. I don't know. But at the time I was terrified. Improv's really been really good for me, actually. It's given me a lot of confidence, but Kendon just created a really great, safe environment and made it very, very clear that like all are welcome, all are safe. We don't we can joke about it, but when things are the butt of a joke, like that's inappropriate. And he just laid out some things of like there's nothing that you can do wrong here. Like if we're improving, so if you're improving and you say it or do it, it's right. The only thing that you can do wrong in improv is to not make a choice. And so it just was the first time where I felt like I really understood the feeling of like I couldn't make a wrong choice. Like no matter what I did, it was right. And it was so freeing. And so they weren't, when I'm on stage doing improv, like it's not a reflection of me. Like I'm not playing myself. I'm playing some character that's somewhere in my creative brain, but my character is expressing something that is true, no matter what it is, but it's not a reflection of me. So I'm free to express that character however it wants to come out. And like that was really revolutionary to me for someone who's grew up and in a wonderful, beautiful family. I'm very thankful for my upbringing, but I grew up and I always felt like I had to perform the right performance, period. And so it was part of like a lot of healing processes for me. It became truly revolutionary. And so I just kind of, it's therapy every week. It's a place where like there's you can't do anything wrong, and like you no choice is a bad choice, and like who wouldn't want to go there?
What's your favorite improv game, whether in practice or in
Mm.
performance?
I really like Foursquare, the short form game Foursquare. I like a lot of other games, but I never can remember what they're called. So I end up like kind of making up names for for them. Every once in a while, my troupe will call an improv jam, and so we just invite people, and you can anyone can come and jam with us. We've coronavirus obviously put a huge wrench in performances and practice. My troupe's been meeting just for practice this summer. We decided just to do that, and so while there's no shows happening, we did decide to put together a sketch comedy show, and the proceeds went to the place where we rehearse, because that business is definitely not having as much traffic in and out, and so we just did like a $5 cover and kept it small, friends and family, social distance with masks. We were all really far backstage, so there was enough. Improvisers were not wearing masks, but it was really safe, and we made sure everyone was comfortable and understood the dynamic. But it just was like, it was just a really, really great thing to, like, after such a dormant season through shutdown, and then like not being able to like even assemble or do anything socially really throughout the summer. It was just a really nice way to like bring some creativity back into your life. And so so we developed this this little show and this little sketch comedy show, and it was fun. It was really fun. I think we all realized how much we enjoyed really a little bit like developing characters deeper, the ones that we had improvised, and then like improvise that again and again and again, and then it morphs into this really great montage sketch show. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Foursquare, though, since I might have seen it, but I'd like to know.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I just rambled about why I love improv.
And I enjoyed the rambling, but I also like to learn about Foursquare. It was my favorite game as a kid, so I want to see what it's like as an adult.
Right. So Foursquare in improv is not with a ball, but you do have 4 people in a square, and so the 2 in front, they are in a 2-man scene, or 2-person scene, I should say. And then you have a host, and they are explaining this. They're asking from the audience a suggestion for this 2-person scene. And he might ask you like, okay, all that came up at the top of my head was like, if your grandma had candy in her purse, what kind of candy would it be? Or that's a little too specific, but you know what I mean? Like some sort of like, it could be an object, or it could be a feeling, it could be a relationship, it could be a place, lots of different things. So then they get a suggestion, and the host shifts them to the right. So then, they just shift over one space. And so then there's 2 people up front, again, one of the same people from the last sketch or scene, and then a new person. So they're in the show. So each person is in 2 different scenes. So they get a suggestion. So shift right again, and they shift, and then you have all these different shows. And so at any period within their improvised scene, the host can say shift left, shift right, shift left, and at sometimes rapid succession, but it's just to kind of move the story forward. So every time you're seen, or every time you're shifted, whatever that scene is, it moves forward in time. So you're not picking back right where you left off. You're supposed to be moving forward to advance the scene. And you can move forward days, moments, years. And so, yeah, so that's just you just shift and play scenes, and then the host calls it when there's a hot button, I guess. I don't know. So it's pretty fun.
I think at the show I saw you at, that was one of the games you guys played, and that was very
really
fun. I don't know if it was your troop or if it was the one after you, but they
I
did
would
the
say
Foursquare.
I would say I'm almost positive it was probably the troupe after us, because when you saw us perform, my troupe was doing long form montage at the time, so they weren't playing any short form games. So that the Foursquare is a short form game.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I have enjoyed, and I told Molly this when I interviewed her last week. I guess it's on the interview for, that's weird. Her show just got posted, and yours is 2 weeks from now. But while people are listening to it, it's now 2 weeks in the past. So it's kind of a existential crisis.
You just time warped yourself. You just time warped yourself in your brain.
But I've been to improv
that's
now
hard work. Good
4 or
job.
5 times now, and I've enjoyed every single one I've been to, except for one, because those guys were jerks. No, just joking. They're still good.
Yeah.
And
it will be different next time, I promise.
Yeah, that's weird. It's never the same.
Yeah, it's like if you go and it's like, man, that's not so great, like be open-minded, come again.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and hopefully once things get settled a little bit more people will be able to go out in person and support you guys.
Yeah.
And if anybody was interested in specifically in contacting you to do hair, or they really want to see your shows, or they want to have the full history lesson on barbering, what would be the best way for them to contact you? Or do you want them contacting you?
Right. I work at Capital City Barbershop in Oklahoma City, and my troupe is called Talk About It, and we've got a Facebook page, I guess. So people in my troupe that are wonderful, wonderful people, so I don't have to maintain our Facebook page, and we post like shows and like upcoming events on that. So those would be the 2 ways.
And just for case people didn't hear that clearly, it's not talk about it, it's taco about it.
Oh, taco about it. Yes, we do love our tacos.
Because it's not a troupe if it doesn't have some kind of pun or silliness attached to it.
Yeah. It is what it is.
You've got to have the existential thing going.
Yeah, talk about it. How do you feel about that? How does your hair feel about
to my head? It's upset because I don't use shampoo and conditioner. I only use one or the other.
Well, they do have 2 different jobs, so.
Now you're gonna have to tell me.
That's just another podcast. That's another podcast.
Fine. The Circuit Breaker Lockdown Questions. So for my friend Amy, what's been the most influential book in your life?
Oh my goodness. I don't think I can even answer this question. Here's why. Because the most transformative and influential book that I've ever read, because, and this is not just like because this could be the right answer, but because like studying the Bible in depth in the Word like has been absolutely the most transformative book in my life. But that also like feels like that's like the supposed to answer, so part of me kind of cringes at that.
Well, let me ask it this way then.
Yeah.
First, which book of the Bible has been most influential? Hey, wait till I ask the question so people can hear your answer. It's a 2-part question now. You didn't want to go with the easy one. What's been the most influential book of the Bible in your life is part 1. Part 2 is outside of the Bible, what's been the most influential book in your life?
Galatians. It's my favorite book of the Bible. And most influential, oh my goodness. I'm sorry that this is so hard. Okay, I'm going to tell you the most influential book that I thought of today, because it is not the most influential book of my life, but I thought of it today because when I was little, one of my very first early readers, I have a few books that I loved as a kid, so this is one of them, was about Harriet Tubman. So I just was reminded again of one of my favorite iconic women as a kid, and how women, especially in our daily lives, we are called to gather and bring along with us the people around us. That's the type of woman that I want to be, is one that is healed and seeks out relationship and seeks out to rescue and seeks out to befriend people that maybe are still in the dark. Being alone and in the dark of depression, in the dark of anxiety, in whatever situation anyone may find themselves in that feels isolating. Even in the midst of a pandemic, I want to be the type of woman, the type of friend that can help people back to the light. And that's what Harriet Tubman did. Just like, many, 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 many women throughout history, and men.
If you were to leave this life tomorrow, sorry, this is from my friend Amanda. If you were to leave this life tomorrow, what's the one thing you would like people to have known about you?
That I loved them.
It's from my friend Rashad. If you were a tree, what kind of pizza would you eat?
If I was a tree, I would be a wood-fired with oak wood. Yeah, a oak-fired pizza. And man, I would say a classic pepperoni. Yeah, classic pepperoni, but definitely like with the good cheeses, I'm not talking about like just one type of cheese. I'm talking like Fontina and some maybe some other good melty cheese, definitely Parmesan. And I want some pizza sauce that's made with tomatoes that has some salt in it. Don't give me of this like tomato puree with no salt. I know the pepperoni would be salty, but that's why it goes together, Yeah, chewy crust, a chewy crust, not a crispy crust, but definitely one that kind of gets bubbly and charred around the edges. That's what I'd be if I was a tree pizza.
From my friend Mandy, how have you learned to get along so well with people who think and believe so differently than you?
I I am high empathy. I am a youngest in my family. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. So it's a little bit of my personality to be able to see understand, even if not agree with all sides of a thing. So I can understand someone else's perspective very easily in an argument or in a fight with somebody. I don't actually, I don't have a lot of fights, but if there's ever a disagreement with somebody, and I'm processing in my own time or in my own head or whatever, I often will argue for their side in my own mind. And it's been easier for me to do that than argue for myself. And so I've learned over the past few years, thankfully, that it's okay to argue for myself, and it's okay to not be responsible for other people's feelings on anything in particular, And I realized that that was a form of control for me, controlling maybe what their perceived outcome could have been. So I want to be able to manage their emotions and their feelings so I don't get hurt. So I realize now that this was not something that was really good for me. And I've worked really hard to educate myself on some of my tendencies and some of my like just mental health stuff.
From my friend Adrian, in the spirit of Harry Carey, if you were a donut, would you eat yourself?
If I was a donut, would I eat myself? Heck yes, I would eat myself. I'd be delicious. Absolutely delicious.
And what kind of donut would you be, out of curiosity?
Oh man, I'm a big I like cake donuts. I love a good glazed, but I will more often choose a cake donut. If the glaze is not fresh, like fresh that morning, and I got there early before noon, well, before noon's not early, but you know what I mean. It's not been sitting there for 4 hours, or it's not been in the break room box from the day before. Like, I'll pick a glazed. But if it's not fresh, give me like a chocolate cake donut with a clear glaze.
Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog.
Hey listeners, it's Jarvix again with my hot dog song of the week. This episode, I'm sharing a song from easily the biggest name I've had on this segment so far, Allie Harder. If you don't know, she's a singer-songwriter, often with a country grit, that has been a staple of Oklahoma music for well over a decade. She far predates my awareness of and involvement in local music, but I do recall the first time I saw her perform. It was a stacked bill in 2013 at 51st Street Speakeasy, headlined by Horse Thief, the year before their label debut Fear and Bliss would break their local buzz into the national conversation. Josh Salee was also on the bill, and it was the year before his biggest album, No Society, would blow up. Dear People was still on the rise, and I had the impromptu pleasure of running their merch table during their set. The venue was packed, and the fervor was high. I hadn't come to see Allie Harder specifically, but she was one of those names I had heard floating around. I was happy to see what the excitement was about, and when she came on stage, full band in support, I instantly got the appeal. Her songs rocked the house, not on the strength of mere spectacle, which was the case with the other performers that night, but with a direct connection to the audience. She really knew how to make you feel like a part of the show. Fast forward to 2020. It's a few months after her appearance on the Emmy Award-winning music series Play It Loud, and a few months before the release of her new and possibly final album, Near the Knuckle. Horse Thief and Dear People are no more, and Allie is on stage with only an acoustic guitar. The buzz in the air is much different, more intimate, but her audience rapport is as strong as ever. She plays this song that has accompanied her music career for ages now, Brandy and Joe. And even though it's not a new song, it feels like I'm hearing it for the first time, taking in every detail anew. The way Allie Harder tells the story, it sounds like one that has been passed around for years until it has become a sort of local legend. It's one of those stories that, when someone is about to tell it to a newcomer, everyone in the bar gives each other a knowing look. It's like showing a favorite cult movie to a friend for the first time. And I think knowing that this song has been around for so long now adds to its myth. Brandy and Joe is a song that I think resonates with the Nobody's a Nobody mantra, even though we don't tend to celebrate drunkards and arsonists here. You'll know what I mean in a minute. It reminds us that in any community, everyone is somebody, and everyone has a story. Sometimes those stories even end up in songs. You can hear Brandy and Joe on Allie Harder's new album, Near the Knuckle, which released a handful of months ago. She also owns and runs a business called Pig's Fly Shop, which offers leather making, graphic design, and plenty more if you need any custom physical or virtual handmade goods. If you like the blue-collar attitude of her music, you'll also want to check out the Mean Hustle Project, which she founded to connect and empower women in gender-biased industries everywhere. And now, on to the song. This is Brandy and Joe by Allie Harder.
He called her Brandy, she called him Joe. Their love's messy as far as love goes. He called her crazy, she called him mean. Them two's the worst idea this town's ever seen. Yeah, Joe was a nice guy, he just came unglued, sucked the life out of the party, and the fumes out the tube away. Wasn't his fault, that girl tore him up. She got what she wanted, and that was enough. He said, I'm a little bit tired and I'm getting too old for huffing gasoline fumes and getting stoned. He said, I was sick and tired of this stupid old town. I'm gonna lock myself in and burn this house to the ground. At the warehouse at 2 in the morning, and Brandy was tired, and Brandy was torn between laughing and crying. Well, she faked her tear and headed down to Wall Street to drink her weight in beer. Yeah, Brandy was happy, and cause she was mean. Hey, wicked old tramp, capital double, it's A. Well, Brandy was smiling the night Joe died, but the joke's on you, Brandy, cause he made it out alive. He said, I'm a little bit tired and I'm getting too old for huffing gasoline fumes and getting stoned. He said, I was sick and tired of this stupid old town. I'm gonna lock myself in and burn this house to the ground. Got out that phone book, called everyone she knew. He said, if you're sleeping with Brandy, the whole town's sleeping with you. He said, I'm a little bit tired and I'm getting too old for huffing gasoline fumes and getting stoned. He said, I was sick and tired of this stupid old town. I'm gonna lock myself in and burn this house to the ground. Too old for huffing gasoline fumes and getting stoned. He said, I was sick and tired of this stupid old town. I'm gonna lock myself in and burn this house to the ground.
Thank you, Allie Harder, for this wonderful song. Thank you, Lucy Piercy, for being a guest this week. Thank you, Jarvix, and thank you, everybody. It is a pleasure to run this podcast, and I hope you get most out of it. Share it with friends, family, or people you don't like, who everything might benefit from it. And remember that no matter what, nobody is a nobody, and that means you. Until next time.